Good morning, good afternoon, hello from wherever you are. My name is Jessie. I am with the Assistive Technology Advocacy Center of Disability Rights New Jersey, and we are here today with Laura Cantalago, and she is going to talk with us about an introduction to web accessibility. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Laura. And with that, I'm going to give the figurative microphone over to you.
All right, thank you. All right, so thanks for joining me today on the introduction to web accessibility. And I'm sorry, Jesse, but my name is said Laura Cantagallo. I'm sorry, I didn't tell that to you before. But all good. Everybody always messes up my name, so I understand. Accessibility and assistive technology specialist here. I have my own consulting business that I'm running right now, but my background is that I'm a special education teacher and assistive technology specialist. I have 16 years of experience with children with disabilities and adults, working with them in the classroom and then also working with them as an assistive tech specialist. I recently, not too long ago, really got into web accessibility, and I'm excited to share some information with all of you today. This session is more of a conversation. It's not a lecture. So I would love for you to continue to share as we move through this presentation. So the first thing I want you to do is think of a website you needed to use, but you could not use. Maybe you couldn't read it. Maybe you could not navigate it. Maybe the form wouldn't let you through. Whatever it was, hold that feeling. And now when I say go, not yet, but when I say go, you're going to type one word in the Zoom chat that describes that experience. All right, ready, set, and go. And Jesse, if you can help me out with what they say, that would be great.
No problem. Words are coming in. Frustrating, confusing, double frustration again, frustration and frustrating, and another confusing.
Okay, amazing. Any others?
Uh, Waiting to see if anybody is typing a little bit more slowly. I think we're good. A lot of frustration and confusion.
Oh, yes, most definitely frustration and confusion. And now, if you think about a person who may be blind or who has low vision and they go onto a website using a screen reader, it's even more frustrating and confusing if they can't get to access the parts of the website that they need to access. So we're going to go through what that looks like for someone who may be blind or has low vision. Although a lot of the disability community in the web accessibility space is concentrating on people with disabilities that have vision loss, it is also important to keep in mind that other people with other disabilities also need to access websites. So we have to think about also learning disabilities and how websites are difficult to read for people like that. So today, I really do focus more so on the parts of the website and how that can be frustrating, but also think about when websites are overwhelmingly populated with images and other material, other text boxes that could be really frustrating to somebody who gets overwhelmed just visually. So just to keep that in mind for today. All right, so let's define it. What makes a website accessible? So before I give you the official definition, let's build it together. When you think about a website being usable for everyone, what does that actually require? Can you perceive it? So can everybody see, hear, or read the content? That's the perceive part. We call this pour, P-O-U-R, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in the following slides. But can you operate it? Can everybody navigate and use the controls? And can you understand it? Is the content clear and the behavior predictable? And does it work everywhere? Does it work with assistive technology? Any kind of assistive technology that someone is using? Raise your hand or drop answers in the chat. You can definitely unmute yourself. And what words come to mind when you think about what makes a website accessible?
I'm waiting on the chat, and while I'm waiting, I'm just going to say plain language. from over here on this end.
Yes.
Okay, so one person's written whether or not you can navigate it. Another person echoed that easy, clear navigation. Someone else said usability and access.
Yes, most definitely. Anyone else?
Feel free to come off of mute if that's easier for you to interact with.
Yes.
Here's
I'd
another
love
one.
to hear
It
other.
says text that can be read with a text reader.
Yes, definitely text readers are important. Text to speech. All right, I'm going to move on to the next slide, but I would love for everybody to also unmute at some point. I'd love to hear other voices. So if you have anything to share, please feel free to raise your hand and unmute yourself. So here's the case for web accessibility. Accessibility is essential for developers and organizations that want to create high quality websites and web tools and not exclude people from using their products and services. And that's from the W3C website, that quote. 1 in 4 US adults live with a disability. So if you think about that, and the web is huge, there's millions of websites, it can be somewhat difficult to navigate all the information that's on the web for someone with a disability. 96% of homepages, or plus more than 96%, have detectable WCAG failures, which are the standards for web accessibility. So just like we have standards in the classroom for learning, it's these are the standards for web accessibility. $490 billion are annually spent on annually spending power of disabled adults. So that's a lot of money to help people with disabilities. And then 71% of users with disabilities leave inaccessible websites. So not 71% actually don't even stay on the site themselves. And this is really interesting statistics to keep in mind as we're looking at web accessibility in 2026. This isn't just a legal requirement, it's a business reality, a social responsibility, and as you'll see today, more achievable than most people think.
So, Laura, I have a
Yeah.
question that's coming from two comments put together in the chat. Um,
Yes.
Someone else, while you were speaking, put in that part of accessibility is about large text, high contrast, and screen readers. So are we going to get any more information on the difference between, if at all, a screen reader and a text reader specifically?
We're going to be talking about I can go over the different screen readers that are available if that's the question.
Oh no, I think it's
Text.
just more of a basic, like, what is the difference between a text reader, just text, and an actual
Okay.
screen reader?
All
Yeah.
right. So, yes, I can share that information. Speech or text to speech it's built into a lot of devices nowadays. Um, and what it does is it just allows somebody to press play on a website and then it will read it out loud to them. So you can turn it on in most accessibility settings on your computer or on your device, like on your iPhone or your Android device. And it will just read the site to you. A lot of times you can actually make the site even less visually taxing. So you can take out like a lot of the graphics and just have the text on there um, by simplifying the website itself and then still read it out loud. Whereas the screen reader is actually software that people with disabilities who are blind or have low vision use to work their computer. So if I'm blind, I can't see my screen, but I can still access everything on my computer with a screen reader. And for Mac, that is VoiceOver. For Windows, we have two different screen reader softwares available. There's the NVDA screen reader, which is free for Windows. You can download it, check it out, try it on your own. And then there's also the JAWS screen reader, which is actually costs money. It's from Freedom Scientific, and It's mostly widely used in people who have, like I said, who are blind or who have low vision. So that's the difference. I feel like that is the best way to describe those. And
Perfect.
are there any further questions about that?
No, I don't think there are any in the chat, but again, you all are free to come off of mute if you so choose, and that's easier for you. But
Yes.
we're good to go in the chat. The chat is all spoken for, Laura.
Okay, great. All right, so we're going to go into some of the standards. If it's not measurable, it's not fixable, and the WCAG standards gives us a measuring stick for web accessibility. So I actually just finished up a big web accessibility evaluation, and I go through all the different standards on that website to see if the website is accessible in each standard. All right, so we have the WCAG 2.1, the framework in plain language. These are the standards. So WCAG stands for Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. It's the international standard published by the W3C. And a lot of different experts in web accessibility actually put this together. They work together to create the standards. This is the same organization that defines how the web should work. And as of October 2023, version 2.2 came out. It's the most current, although they are working on an updated version at this time. It is what most laws and regulations now reference, although right now, the standard for what's coming up in this month, the laws based from the federal guidelines is that public entities actually need to be um, up to date as of April 2026 for WCAG 2.1 AA. So, although we have 2.2, we still need to conform our websites and remediate them to 2.1. Um, Also, part of the framework is POUR, P-O-U-R. The POUR principles are perceivable. Can everybody perceive your content? Operable. Can everyone operate your interface? Understandable. Is your content clear and predictable and robust? Does it work with assistive technology? So remember those buckets we just built together? That's POUR. Um, and you really might have already heard of POUR because it's actually part of UDL, Universal Design for Learning. It's what we also use to create Universal Design for Learning in our classrooms, in our communities. So it's interesting that they also used POUR with the standards for web accessibility. Any questions here?
I do not see any in the chat.
Great. I'll keep moving on then. All right, so like I said, WCAG 2.1 AA is the legal minimum right now, but there were some changes between 2.1 and 2.2. 2.1 was created in June 2028, or there were additions to 2.1 in 2018. I'm sorry, I totally screwed that up. I'm so sorry. But WCAG 2.1 in June 2018, they added 17 criteria over 2.0, and those were focused on mobile, low vision, and cognitive. I won't go through each one right now, but really what the main point was to include text spacing and labels and names, as well as be able to zoom into the page at 400% without having to horizontally scroll. So if you want to look more into the standards, they're of course on the website and you could read all about them. It takes a lot of time to go through each standard and understand them. But I really wanted to just point out that they're the group that is creating the standards. They are continuing to add to the standards, take away from the standards, and make sure that they're up to date. So there were also some changes to WCAG 2.2 in October 2023, and they added 9 new criteria over 2.1, which focused on focus, visibility, touch, and cognitive. So these are things like focus appearance. Can the keyboard focus indicator meet the minimum size and contrast? Can you drag and drop, or are the dragging movements available? Or even if can you hover over something and it you if you pull your mouse away, will the hovering will that part of the website, that drop down, still be there even if you pull your mouse away? So the kinds of things like that were added. They removed 4.1.1, which became obsolete because browsers handle malformed HTML, which we're not going to go into HTML today. This is all an introduction today, but just a little bit of background on WCAG 2.1 and 2.2. I think my own take on this is that it's a lot of jargon, and if you don't know the standards and you don't understand how web accessibility works, it's really hard to understand the standards. So the best way to learn this, if you wanted to go forward, is to look at it in plain language. And honestly, I've used ChatGPT and AI to help me to understand the standards in plain language. Or you can actually go to the site and read a whole page about each standard so that you have more understanding of it as well. And I'll give you those resources too, in the following slides at the end of the presentation. Any questions here?
The chat is currently quiet.
All right. All right, so contrast for low vision beyond the minimum. So really, this is something that actually has been interesting for me because as I look at a website, you think because I have vision and I can see 2020, um, contrast for me isn't an issue. So when I'm looking at contrast for someone who has low vision or who has vision loss, um, it's interesting because, like, you'll see at the bottom of this slide, 4.5 colon 1 double A, this text passes the white on blue, right? And then triple A, we do have a thing called triple A. No one really aims for triple A standard, um, but 7 colon 1 triple A is high visibility, that orange on the blue. And then if you see to the right, 2.5 colon 1, that is very low contrast. It's a very low gray on color on a blue background. And the legal requirement for contrast is actually 4.5 colon 1. And it depends on text size too for contrast. So normal text versus large text can vary for contrast. The the thing to keep in mind too, though, is that 1 in 12 people have low vision that demand more and need contrast to be up to standard for them for their needs. And double A standards protect many users when it comes to low contrast or contrast. When you're looking at websites for contrast, there's a lot of different contrast checkers that you can pull up. One in particular is the WebAIM contrast checker. It can be pulled into your favorites bar, and then you just click on it and you can pull it up as you're looking at a website and just select the different colors on the site. It will tell you what contrast failed and what does not fail. There's also other ways to do it with automated checkers that are available, and I'll share some of those as we go through the rest of the slides as well. So yeah, so high contrast ratios alone don't guarantee readability. It's just to keep that in mind. And we need to avoid small font sizes, thin typefaces, all caps body text, and text over busy images, even if the ratio passes. So text over background images is kind of hard for people to actually read. Any questions here?
The chat is again quiet, but I actually do have a question about text.
Okay.
Um, a lot of people might assume that as long as the text is big, it's readable. Um,
Mm-hmm.
are there better fonts than others to be looking out for in terms of accessibility?
I think there are most definitely I tend to use Arial or Calibri. Just the basic ones are always going to be better than like a fancy font or even sometimes Times New Roman. Did I say that correctly? I think it's that one. Um, Even that one sometimes I think is hard for people to read because some of the letters are not normal, not like print letters. So I think just sticking with the basics. And then, of course, if you have dyslexia, they do have this dyslexia font, which I guess could be used, but not on a website, you
Okay.
know.
And we actually did just get a written comment in the chat. It says, are the legal requirements for public organizations only? But are they also recommended for private organizations? Who is monitoring? And what are the ramifications if you are not meeting requirements?
Um, it is the recommendation for all organizations, I believe, is my understanding. Who is monitoring? That's a good question. We're not quite sure yet in the accessibility world who's monitoring the websites, other than we're coming up to a deadline for large organizations having their websites accessible by April 26th, 2026, which is in just 2 weeks or so. And I'm not sure what's going to happen if people don't meet the deadline, but there definitely is a push toward having accessible websites across the web. So I contract with different organizations to help with web accessibility on their site, so I do the evaluation. So I think that right now larger organizations are trying to just get their websites more accessible by hiring contractors or doing it in-house evaluations. But like I said, I don't know if the government or like anybody's going to come and look at your site necessarily. What will happen most likely, from what I've heard, is that somebody who has low vision or who is blind or has a disability, they may be going to your site and then they can't access the information that's really important to them. Then they sue the company or the organization, and then that's when people start looking at the site. So, um, that's where my information is coming from so far, is that we're not really sure who's going to be checking all the sites.
Okay, and um, otherwise the chat is nice and ready for the next section.
Yep. Okay. So like I said, we have compliance levels. The level A is the minimum. Level double A is legally required, like I said, with 2.1. And then the triple A is the enhanced. And I have not met one person who's trying to go for the level triple A, like I had said. So level A is the absolute floor. It's the minimum. It covers the most critical barriers like missing alt text, no keyboard access, flashing content, those things. Level A alone does not protect you legally, whereas level double A does protect you legally. It's the target for all the organizations that are out there. And this is the level where ADA and Section 508, plus the European Accessibility Act and most global laws require level double A. So just to keep that in mind, level A does like if you're trying to reach level double A, it doesn't mean you're avoiding level A, right? So if you are an organization and you are actually going to um, aim for level double A, which you're going to because it's legally required, it means that you're meeting level A and level double A, right? So they like combine together almost. Does that make sense? Are there any questions there?
It makes sense on my end. There are no
Okay.
written questions in the chat.
Yep. So
And
you're not going to ignore all the standards that are under level A. You're going to make sure you follow, you meet those standards as well as the double A standards. All right. So the VPAT is part of web accessibility as well. And it is the voluntary product accessibility template, and it was created by W3C. It's a document that explains your digital product or service and how it meets accessibility standards. It has all the WCAG standards in it, and whether you are meeting those standards is in the document as well. So each WCAG success criterion gets a rating as supports, partially supports, does not support, or not applicable. And once the VPAT is completed, you create an ACR, which is an accessibility conformance report. It's the final document you share with clients, agencies, or procurement offices. Um, and who needs a VPAT? Government and public sectors definitely need VPATs. So any product sold by federal, state, or local government must have an ACR on file. Section 508 requires it. Enterprise and higher education, large companies and universities now routinely require VPATs from software vendors as part of their procurement. And anyone selling B2B, if a potential client asks, do you have a VPAT and you don't, you may lose the contract. So anyone selling anything to anyone there. And then proactive transparency, even if it's not required, publishing a VPAT signals a commitment to inclusion and it builds trust before a question is asked. So if also you have a VPAT and somebody sues your organization, you can provide the VPAT showing that you are moving toward accessibility as one of your priorities. Any questions here?
No questions.
All right, so let's go. This is going to be your turn. If you please unmute your mic or you can raise your hand. I really would love to hear from you more when it comes to this discussion. So, where does your organization currently stand on accessibility? If you're part of an organization, what's the biggest gap you're aware of right now? And you can drop it in the chat. You can type in your answer, or you can raise your hand and speak, or you could give a thumbs up if you've already started an audit and you're not willing to share right now. We'll take a couple minutes to do this discussion. There's no wrong answer either. So, yeah.
I'm gonna keep an eye on the chat. Um, Here we go. Um, One comment says, we serve blind, low vision users to gain independent living skills. I teach voiceover and JAWS.
Okay. Awesome. Are there any accessibility barriers to the website?
Okay. I'll wait. I'll go back to their comment in just a second. Someone else came in
Mhm.
and said, we are preparing to redesign our website and want to ensure it is fully accessible.
Okay. Amazing.
Um, Someone else has just written, I think we're doing well, but are occasionally finding things that got overlooked. This is mainly due to how much we've put on our website over the years. I feel like a lot of us can relate to that one. There's a lot,
Yes, most definitely can relate to that.
yeah, there's a lot of that going on with a lot of different websites. Oh, and then here's a specific ask for you. It says,
Okay.
Laura, do you assist clients during a web redesign process, or do you only do evaluations on existing live sites?
I I do not know how to code a website, so I mostly just help with evaluation of current sites, but I'm willing to collaborate and share what I think would be best practice for when building a website. I just actually rebuilt my own website, and not that I built it myself, but I was able to help the developer with the back end a little bit. So yeah, I think I could consult a bit if you're willing, if you need some help.
They said, great, thank you.
You're welcome. All right,
I
sure.
actually have a question about what you just said, Laura. So does
Hmm.
this mean that because of WCAG and everything with the standards being required now in a couple weeks, or the better standards being required in a couple weeks, does this mean that coders always have to be on board for um, for these requirements? Um, or can some coders still kind of get away with not doing at least the minimum in terms of accessibility? What does that look like for them? Do you know?
Yeah, I can share a little bit about that. Um, there's a couple of things that come to mind when it comes to coding and web designers. A lot of the programs that they've been through, college or other programs to get their certifications or their ability to make websites, they have not had training specifically on accessibility. So that comes up quite a bit in the accessibility community that a lot of the times they're having to learn as somebody's evaluating the site, but then there may be other developers who do have a background in accessibility and can build from the start. So our goal would be for all web accessibility site creators or all website creators to and coders to have web accessibility in mind from the beginning, right? So they're not having to rebuild the site. But something else that comes to mind with that question is that a lot of our big um, product um, organizations and businesses like GoDaddy, they're template-based websites. And it's interesting because I built my first site on GoDaddy and it's not accessible because I built it with web-based templates. And these templates do not allow for a site to be accessible no matter how you work them. So you come out with this beautiful looking site that's very easy to use as far as a mouse goes and a keyboard, like just a regular user. But then you turn on the screen reading software and you cannot access parts of the site. And what I came to find out is that GoDaddy, for example, does not necessarily know that their templates are not accessible right now, but there are workarounds for it, and of course, I think they're working toward making it better for people. But at the same time, we just have to keep in mind that if you have a business and you're creating a website using templates, which is what I'm finding across a lot of these sites is every page is the same template. You've got to go back and fix all the accessibility issues within each page. Or as the developer, you could try to fix all the templates, the code in all the templates. And so, yeah, it's a big question. That's a great question to ask. But I think really the main goal is to work in accessibility from the beginning, and I don't think many web developers have done that. I hope I answered your question.
You did, thank you. And speaking of questions, another one came in a bit ago while you were responding. It says, what are your thoughts on widgets like Accessibility?
Okay, I can definitely share about that. Widgets, when I first found them, I thought they were incredible, but what I did not know when I was playing around with them myself is that the widget itself will interfere with screen reader software. So like JAWS voiceover, the widget actually will stop the screen reader from working. So in the accessibility community, widgets are not accepted as a workaround. A lot of people are paying for a widget for their site to get around actually doing an evaluation, a formal evaluation on their site for accessibility. So I would suggest never using them unless you've done a full manual and automated review of the site. And even then, you have to keep in mind that they do interfere with software that's used by people with disabilities.
So what it sounds like here is that uh some of the tools that are created with the intent of making life easier actually are making life harder, especially for people with disabilities and
Yes,
other access needs.
most definitely. And if there's a way for them both to exist in the same world and work together, then it would be awesome, but they don't currently. Maybe that will be in the future. Just like we think that AI will change the world of accessibility in the future, but we're not there yet.
Someone about 6 seconds ago just wrote in about AI. They
Yes.
said new tools like Lovable, an AI-based website generator, can make beautiful websites in minutes based on prompting, and they can
Yes.
add accessibility tools like large text and high contrast.
Yes, that's true too, but you have to be careful because there might be templates in the background. And so your headings and regions or landmarks might be off. You just have to still do a manual test on the site. That's what I would suggest.
Good to know. Oh, somebody else just wrote in far from or the same person actually wrote in far from perfect. So we're in
Yes,
agreement.
far from perfect.
You're in agreement
It's
there.
it's
Okay.
still best, like I said, still best to start from the beginning with accessibility in mind. And we're so far into the web these days that I feel like most of our websites aren't accessible, right? So yeah, it's an interesting world to be part of. All right, so we're going to go into section two, which is reading a website. And the way I love to think about a website is to think about it as a book. So you're reading a book, right? In every book, you have your chapters. Sometimes you have your table of contents. You have your titles, and then you have the body of text. And sometimes you might have images, right? So every element of your web page, like a book, has a job. And we're going to walk through the different ones that are most important today. So yeah, screen readers don't see a website visually, they read its structure. So that's again why it's so important to look at a website like a book. Structure is everything. So I like to say that the landmarks of a website when you're using a screen reader, they actually are the table of contents of a website. So landmarks are regions of the page, the header, the navigation, the main content, the footer. A screen reader user can jump through to main sections just like you'd flip to chapter one from the table of contents. Then you have your chapter titles, which are your headings, heading one through heading six. Um, Meaning that the headings should be in order on a website. I have not found one site so far that I've evaluated that is has the headings in order. And actually, most of the sites I've found are starting with heading two, and then they go to heading five. They might go to next to heading three, and then back to heading two, and so on and so forth. So, heading one is the book title. Heading two are the chapters. Heading three are sections within the chapters. And so the screen reader should read each heading and subheading like a book in order. And it's kind of like skimming the table of contents, but again, your landmarks are your table of contents, right? And then you have your illustrations in your book or your website. And these are the images that are in your site. They're the graphics. A screen reader can actually pull up the graphics list and give you exactly what each graphic alt text has. So alternative text is really important when you're creating a website, and every image needs that caption, which is the alt text that describes what it shows. So if I did not have vision, if I was blind, could I still be able to picture what an image um, is based on your description of it? So what is it that you would need in a description for me to understand it of the image? And a lot of the decorative images on websites, they do not need alt text because screen reader users can just skip over those. Those are not important to them. But any image that really does give the screen reader information about the web page needs alt text. Then we have cross references, which are also
So,
links.
Laura,
They're,
I have a
yes,
question about alt text, if I can just stop you before you go to the next one.
sure.
Um, Sometimes I've noticed that there's a lot of words in an alt text, and sometimes
Yeah.
I notice that there are fewer words. Like, what is best practice, would you say?
I think best practice is get to the main point of what the image is sharing with the screen reader. So I don't think a lot of words are needed. I don't think, and of course, like two words is not enough. So I think um, as long as you get across the point, you get across the point that the image is providing the user, I think you're good. So I don't think there's necessarily the amount of words, minimum or maximum. It's just, did you get to the main point of what the image is trying to share with the user?
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. So yeah, then we have links, which are click here is an often a link that comes up in a link list with a screen reader. And of course, a screen reader user would not know what click here take where that takes them. So we want to make sure that every link has a description of where it takes the user, a destination, and learn more about our return policy. Not click here is a better heading or a better description of a link than click here, right? So a lot of the times I'm seeing repeated links within a links list or links that are abbreviated. And abbreviations, of course, are not said correctly by a screen reader. Um, or the link label is just too long, too short, or like I said, says click here or see page. So, yeah, really important for web designers to look at their links list descriptions as well. Any questions here? And I mean, of course, there's more parts to a site, but these are the main four, I think, that I wanted to share today.
There are no current questions that are new.
Okay. So we're going to go on to the most common barriers on the web. And every year, WebAIM analyzes the top 1 million homepages. In 2025, 94.8% had detectable WCAG failures, which is quite a bit. We actually have not gone down in the amount of detectable WCAG failures. We're staying around the kind of the same mark, but 96% all the detected errors came from just six common issue types. And I've talked a lot about those already today. 79.1% have low contrast text. That's the number one failure that they're finding. And that text doesn't have enough contrast against its background. 55.5% have missing alt text, images without a text description. 48.2% have missing form labels, so anything that you're going to input your information into, or if you have a pop-up that you insert information so it sends an email to the company, there's no label connected to the code, and the screen reader can't tell the user what to type. 45.6% have empty links, so no descriptions, links with no text, usually icon links with no ARIA labels. The user hears link with no destination. 29.6% have empty buttons, so there's buttons that have no accessible name. Often icon buttons like hamburger menus or closed icons without a label. We also have missing language on 15.8% of our pages, pages without a declared language attribute, and screen readers can't select the right pronunciation rules with the missing language on the page. Um, this, of course, is right from webaim.org, so you can look up the entire report if you're more interested in finding out about all of the data points. But it's been interesting to read this compared to previous years. Any questions here?
No, we are currently quiet.
All right, so we have 10 minutes left, and I think we only have a couple more slides left here. Let's think about a website, your website, or a site you use regularly. What are the 6 common barriers that you think would most likely show up on the site and why? So think about one barrier you might think is most likely on your site and don't share it yet. Just think for a minute here and then we'll drop our answers in the chat for 2 minutes and then have a discussion about that.
Okay, we have one answer so far in the chat. It says,
Okay.
oh, we've got many. Actually, everyone decided to write at the same time. Okay,
Awesome.
so the first says contrast errors. Second,
Yes.
we have navigation is out of order for screen readers.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the third issue listed is it's difficult to navigate. The fourth issue is low contrast text. Um, and the final comment is when buttons are not labeled and just say quote button on screen reader.
Yep, that's very common. So what pattern are we seeing from your answers? Navigation and contrast, right? So really, when you think about it, if you were to turn your screen off and turn your screen reader on, to turn your screen to black, right? Turn your screen reader on, how long would it take you to get to the section of the site that you need to get to if the website is not accessible? It would probably take 10 times longer or sometimes more. So you're spending more time and almost wasting more of your time to get to what you need. The navigation tab comment, that's really important to keep in mind too, because the website that I just actually was reviewing, the tab order was really long. And so looking at websites tab order is super important, especially if you have a long links list. So the first item on the page should actually have a skip to main content link so that the screen reader user can skip to the main content instead of going through a whole long list of links before getting to what they need to get to quickly. Um, of course, contrast, like everybody said, but yeah, navigating buttons. If a button just says it's a button, you're not going to know what the button does. Same with links, same with headings. If a heading doesn't have even a heading title, or if it's out of order, you're not going to know where you are on the page. And a lot of screen reader users, they're using the lists that they can pull up to navigate the website quickly. And if the screen reader If the website does not have an accessible name for those items, the screen reader user can't use their lists in the right way, in like in the most effective way. Any questions here?
There are no new questions in the chat, but what you've said raises another question in general.
Okay.
So what are people's, besides the fact that they may get in trouble with Big Brother, right? If they don't do
Hmm.
this, um, what are people's best reason to buy in to making sure everything is as accessible, within reason as it can be? Because I'm asking this question because accessibility comes up for a lot of disability organizations and related fields. And
Hmm.
sometimes you find that there are events, whether they're virtual or not, virtual or in-person events that do not acknowledge access needs, uh, even minimally, especially for people with disabilities. And sometimes people's answers have been, well, that's a lot of extra work, right? And
Yep.
we don't expect people with insert disability here to be, we don't expect them to be visiting this site, or we don't expect to be visit them to go to this event, virtual or otherwise. Um,
Hmm.
so what do you think, from your perspective, is the ultimate kind of buy-in to really get down and do more of this?
I mean, it's going to be difficult to have every company, every organization buy into it, but I think for me, like personally speaking, and from my opinion, is that it comes down to inclusion. So, I mean, one day I might lose my vision, right? So, like, we all want to be included, and whether you have a disability or not, it's really important to have a website that allows for inclusion of all people. I think that's what it comes down to. And if you can explain it in plain language without using jargon and disability acronyms and all those things, then I think organizations would buy into it. It's a great question. I think for me, my passion is like learning for all, like accessibility for all. I believe like all people should have access to information, no matter if you have a disability or not. And so, wouldn't all organizations believe that too? Well, I'd hope so, right? So,
Right.
I guess that's my take on it.
Someone
And
did just write
also,
in as we were talking.
yep, okay.
They identified, they they went along with what you were saying, and they said it is a public good for the community that we serve. And I think that that really goes along with what you're saying.
Yep, exactly. It is. It is. Just like the curb, cutouts. We have my town right now is installing more of them. So it's just like that. Like those are the curb cutouts are for moms with strollers. I had a double stroller at one point, right? For my twins. So like there's reasons to be accessible outside of just the community of people with disabilities, I think. So I think organizations, if they could see through that, they would adopt accessibility at a higher rate.
Excellent.
Hmm.
Just one more quick reminder to everyone on the webinar that if you would like to get off of mute and um, share by not typing, share in other ways, you are more than welcome to do that.
Yep. I think we have a couple more slides, but we're running out of time too. So if you Yeah, I'm gonna actually skip over this one, but if you have ever tried to use a website and hit a wall or helped a user who couldn't get through it, what happened? If you want to share in the chat your story or even email it to me, that would be awesome. I'll give you my email address. I would love to hear your stories from your own experiences from testing or from working with people with disabilities or without. But I'm gonna keep moving on because I just want to talk about quickly about manual testing, which it always wins, right? So automated tools like dev tools and Lighthouse are Andy, there's lots of different automated tools out there. They only catch 30 to 40% of the issues, so we really want to make sure that we are testing manually with our human eyes, human hands, and a screen reader to see the other issues within the sites. So manual testing will always trump automated testing. A site can pass 100% of automated checks and still be completely unusable for a screen reader user. It the automated tests, they can catch alt text, low contrast, missing foreign labels, invalid HTML, and duplicate IDs, but they miss a lot of the logical reading order or screen reader experience, the keyboard flow. There's no way to test that unless you do a manual test. Like I said, some of the best tools out there are Lighthouse, Wave, Axe DevTools. Um, and there is the Andy tool, which is also free. They're really quick, they're great for a first pass, but they'll never be sufficient on their own. Then you have manual testing, of course, where you're using a keyboard. You unplug your mouse, tap through everything. Can you reach everything? Can you use it? Using NVDA with Firefox or VoiceOver and Safari is the best way to do this. Or if you have access to JAWS, you could use JAWS with Chrome, whatever your way of doing it is. And that does the content that is said announce it correct? Like, does the voice, um, the voice through the screen reader, is it announcing the content correctly? And does it make sense? Can you zoom to 200% and 400%? And for a cognitive review, you can read the content out loud. Are there error messages that are actually helpful? Is language plain and clear? So again, manual testing is always really important to do. A lot of people are just trying to get away with the automated testing, but it's super important to keep up with the manual testing as well. So lastly, we complete an accessibility audit by looking at the whole website. So you're going to start looking at the site with your mouse, just doing a manual test of the site or just a review of the site. Then you can go on to doing keyboard only testing. So not using a screen reader, but just using your tab, your escape key, shift tab to go backwards, and your arrows on your keyboard. Then you want to make sure you're documenting that as well as running an automated scan after that. So running all your automated scans on all the different pages of the site that you're sampling. Of course, you don't have to sample every single page of the site, especially if it's a huge site, but you want to get a good sample of different pages and different templates that are being used on the pages. Then you're going to use your screen reader to test. And then finally, remediate, retest, and publish. So making sure you have your data points in order. I like to put my findings into a PowerPoint so that they are kind of like a presentation for the client, and then move forward with making those remediate the site from the web designer side. Any questions here?
The chat's silent.
All right. So I think I pretty much went through all this, that there's different automated scanners, there's different screen readers. TalkBack is the one that I did not mention that's built into Android, but otherwise I think I mentioned everything here except for IBM Equal Access, but there's so many different ones out there. All right, I think we're really out of time, so I should just skip over the
Well,
yeah.
if you wanted to do like a 1 minute like wrap up, that's okay. And
Yep.
also the other thing I can just mention to everyone on here, I am going to be sending out a email with the recording. I can also put Laura's email in uh, the registration email. So you can feel free to reach out to her directly with additional questions. That's not a problem.
Yep, I think I'm pretty much getting to the end here. Accessibility doesn't stop at the browser. Just wanted to mention this quickly that Documents always have to be accessible as well. So PDFs are static images, they are not accessible. We want to make sure that we're following the same accessibility requirements or guidelines for PDFs, Word documents, and PowerPoints as we are for web accessibility. Same thing will occur. There might be headings that are not correct. Alt text may not be there. So you just want to make sure that all the documents that you're using are accessible and that there's the correct reading order. And then also for social media, this is really important. Something that's huge in the accessibility community is that we're using plain language, alt text on images in social media posts. We don't start any bullet points with emojis because the screen reader will not read it. It will read it first, but it gets it confused with the text. So you want to make sure the emoji comes at the end and use it sparingly. And then also those hashtags and caption and audio descriptions are there. So yeah. Um, Screen readers won't always read hashtags correctly. Yeah, so this is the end. I just want to take a minute to ask you what is one accessibility thing you will do this week, or one thing that you will do that will allow for your week to be more accessible? Would it be to review the standards, research the VPAT, check your heading structure on your website, audit alt text, or look at your documents for accessibility, check your social media posts, um, run Wave, which is a free automated tool on a site, or navigate your site with the keyboard only for 10 minutes. So some things you can try this week to see if you can make your week or your materials a little bit more accessible. And lastly, we have some resources here. And should I use a carousel.com is a great resource. No website should be using carousels at the moment because they're not accessible. Um, and yeah, I'll send,
There is one question here about whether or not,
yes.
speaking of PDFs, I actually have this question as well. I
Okay.
usually send PDFs uh of a presentation to someone I presented to, so that they can't go in and change what I've written, etc. But the
Yep.
information is still there. Um, is that accessible to share? And will you be sharing? This person is asking if you'll be sharing the slides as a reference.
I can share the slides as a reference, but the PDF is not accessible necessarily. So I can share the PowerPoint itself. That's probably the most accessible way to share
Okay,
it.
see, I learned something new too, because I just went through giving away giving away information via PDF, and now I know not to not to do
Yeah,
that
you
in
could
the
always, I
future.
mean, you could always check it, but most PDFs are static images and it's taking a picture of your document.
Okay,
Yep.
great. All right,
So I'll
thank you.
send the resources your way so you can send them out to the participants today and
Yes.
connect with me if you have any questions. I'm here. I'm happy to help. I'm working from home doing my consulting work. And if you know anybody, if you need help yourself consulting on accessibility or assistive technology, I'm happy to help, as well as, like I said, I'm a teacher, so I can help with that too. So
Um,
thank you so much for even for chatting with me today in the chat, and thank you, Jesse, for following along with the chat. It
sure,
was
you're
great.
getting a lot of thanks. You're getting many thanks right now.
Awesome.
All right, I am going to stop the recording.
Great.